Wow. I'm so surprised they're doing all this weed trimming around the coffee here, which is fantastic. So this tree shows the way they trim the tops here in order to keep them short and sometimes to open up a space for air in the middle, but found some of the varieties they're growing here that weren't trimmed and they get really tall. It's a real mix here. We have it's called Timtim, which is pure Timor hybrid, Timor, Aceh Super, and Rambung, which is also called Abyssinia 7, which is sort of descended from old type. So they're telling me this is Aceh Super right here. And this one here is Rambung or Abyssinia 7. Like Timtim, it has a long pointed leaf, and sometimes you can see this like really pointed fruit, long. But look at that leaf, it's crazy. But Daniel says he thinks it's probably been crossed over time with Timtim. Whoa, really unique shape and such. I'm gonna collect some cherries to grow. See what I get in California with that. So there's a lot of Timtim here, but this crazy stuff. Does that look crazy to you? Because that looks crazy to me. That's like coffee the size of a finger. This is called Abyssinia 3 here, AB3 locally. And you know, even on a tree like this that has this amazing, unusual long bean, not all the cherries do. This is like picking out some that are the biggest, and this is what we find in them. Timtim also has a long bean on some of the trees, although we pulled out some samples that were very round. So this is a coffee processing facility for hauling and drying coffee right in Takengon town in Aceh Tengah. In Aceh, it's not North Sumatra, it's Aceh. And so this is where all the Gayo coffees come from. Here's the coffee that's been bought from collectors as wet parchment. being dried down before wet hauling because it came in too wet. And then over there's the green bean after wet hauling. And then they prepare the coffee over in that room and hand pick it. There's some small lots. This is the Rafi. This is their hauler. So a lot of times these are run off truck engines because they have so much friction. They require a ton of power, and yeah, this looks like that's a truck motor. Usually I've seen them on pickup truck motors, but this is a literal small truck engine. It's like just a 4-cylinder, very standard engine. And wow, you can see here, this is like still homemade. That's some really thick rebar for construction. And the haulers usually locally made too. And you can see by the length of it from end to end that's the path the coffee travels and requires a ton of friction to pull that parchment layer off of the green bean when it's still adhered to it, when it's not dried and shrunken down. So, hello. I love this place. There's beautiful colors and stuff. That desk, it's amazing. But yeah, this thing's huge. This is actually, usually these are like kind of homemade, but this has a kind of a Scunthorpe. Yeah, so if we opened up with this up, we'd see this huge friction burr in here. And you can even tell by the size of the belts and the pulleys how much power we're talking about. So let's go see. Is this Labu?
Yeah, this is called process super.
Process super.
It's super process.
It's so warm. It's super hot.
And so super process is when they hold the coffee right after drying, so it's still hot.
Oh, really?
It comes out with none of the silver skin still on it, and it looks prettier, and it turns a slightly different color.
I didn't know that. I know that I've seen coffees that, definitely look a lot different with less silver skin, but that's a really good explanation. So it comes off the patio warm, they haul it right away. Wow. It's really unique.
Yeah, and it ends up a bit shinier.
Yeah. This is coffee it's just something you never see anywhere else. Coffee wet hauled. And it's completely wet, it just breaks in two. Wow. Super.
Kalau enggak. Ini bagus hasilnya. Tidak
iya,
ada.
tapi kalau super banding yang ini jemur lebih lama.
Sama aja tergantung kadar air yang diminta.
Oke, tidak jemur.
Tidak ada masalah. Kalau penjemuran sama aja.
Sama waktu penjemuran sama aja.
Hanya saja hasilnya lebih bagus.
Bedanya hanya ini panas ketika.
Iya.
So this is something you don't see a lot in the world of coffee. The first time you see it, it's very confusing. I'll explain. It's not that this is green bean, obviously, green coffee that's been wet hulled and is dried a little bit. And over here, this is Labu. This is green coffee that has just been wet hauled and it's still like white. So you can see the color difference generally between these two. Not hand-picked yet, not density sorted, so there's a lot of defects in it still. That's not what's crazy here. What's crazy, if you've been to a lot of coffee processing, is to see green bean out in the sun drying. Because if you look here, like this is coffee with a parchment layer on it. Yeah. Hello. And everywhere else you'll see coffee drying with parchment layer. You'll never see green bean drying. So this is what's unique about wet hauling and unique about Sumatra, and kind of scary too, because the green coffee is just out, naked, without its parchment layer. Anyway, this is Lues, which is a whole different kabupaten area in Aceh, Gayo. It's a newer area that we've been buying some coffee from. It's been called Lues Sike, Lues. This is Gayo Lues. It's kind of a nauseating drive from a very windy road here from Takengan, the main town where most of the coffee's traded, in Aceh Tengah on Lake Tawar. It's the sort of standard coffee area, and we're out way far away from that. Fairly far away from that. Let's say that. These are floaters here, pulping the coffee into a tank for floating, and this guy's kind of unusual. He's doing long fermentation underwater, drying, covered drying that he's building. Some more here, so. And all this is funded by selling in the local market to Java, Jakarta, Bandung, other places in Java. So, you know, people are getting really good prices for quality coffee here. He's only focused on specialty. Go look in here. Is he doing winey coffee?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
No?
Well, maybe for
No winey coffee?
people.
Yeah. It's like some naturals. And this is priceless. Yeah. Fully natural. Even buying part semi-natural. 50% natural. 50% synthetic. Fully washed. Wash it. Long underwater fermentation. So this is Asianto's natural drying facility. He has a separate washed one. He built these 3.5 years ago and hasn't even changed the plastic, so they've been pretty durable. And you see like this combined split bamboo with a metal frame, metal framework, drying beds. And I'm interested because there isn't a vent on the roof to let moisture out somehow, or something controllable, which I understand in the kind of second generation of solar dryers is kind of seen as desirable because what you get is a bunch of condensation inside in the morning because your moisture isn't allowed to sort of escape along with the heat. So a little bit of washed here. So anyway, some of these lots he had some trouble because some bad weather. It just wasn't getting hot in here and drying, but feels quite dry in here now. This was his first washing facility too. So this is a nice design, not too high, so it keeps the heat down. That's in there with Daniel. This is what I really like. I think it's super innovative. This sort of micro lot washer and dryer for coffee. Amazing. Next level. And also, don't forget really cool farm, Baki and Gayo Lues. Anyway, the chainsaw just started up. It's beautiful though. I was noticing, just how the shade trees and the trees that were farmed here originally are fallen and they're just left here, and then you have all this sort of decay and microorganism and even coffee growing that's fallen on a log growing. But you see like this, and this is really nice for just homes for microorganisms. Oh, look at that guy. Hey, little dog. Anyway, it grows different types of longberry types of rambung, which is called Abyssinia 7. Interesting here too, a lot of these grasshoppers, which can't really be good, but well, certainly looks healthy, so I think he just deals with them, but they're just everywhere. Also a lot of large spiders that create webs between trees. You kind of have to watch out. Some of them are like 2 inches, 2-3 inches wide. Don't want to run into those with my face, but those are probably consuming these little grasshoppers. But what a beautiful place. This is the bronze leaf rambung type. So well managed. I think Aceh has some of the best managed coffee. You see the shade, trees, and very large 2-meter spacing between plants. And they look very healthy. It's not organic here. He does some spraying, he told me, but it's very localized. Just on problem trees and problem areas. No blanket spraying. And you can see all the weed control is just machete. He's chopping everything. He's here pulling off a lot of the extra branches from the trees as they kind of overproduce leaves. You have to keep the leaves down. In fact, we were somewhere else where, with this umbrella cut, which is where they sort of stump the tree and fold it over here, and then he'll come. Cricket, and they'll just break off all these on the top. And there's the guy who actually uses a brush and brushes off the new plants, but you don't want any of these here on the top to grow. Like all this coming up off the main branch to keep it short and open to the air. This is cool. It's my first trip to this area of Gayo of Aceh. And it's not super high altitude here, but been getting some nice coffees from here, so wanted to come see more about it. This is another nice, they call these domes, sometimes they're called parabolas, but they're for drawing. And given that this is the weather today, but you can actually dry coffee, continue processing. I've explained to people my feeling on this is that coffee is, if coffee was produced in a factory, you'd have, it's like a manufactured item, you'd have power, and you couldn't function without power. And in coffee drying system, the power is often the sun. So in a sense, a lot of times your power is out. And what building something like this does is it takes control of that and lets you have power again, so you can continue to process coffee even because you collect heat even if it was raining. Sometimes you come in these and they're really warm, so they cost money, they're less labor efficient than a patio, etc., but they keep your coffee factory functioning. So they're nicely built, and I've heard these last 4, 5, even 8 years. I was at one yesterday. The plastic lasts that long. Oh, hello. What are you doing there? Yeah. So they're gonna fire up this bad boy. It'd be funny to say bad girl, wouldn't it? They're gonna fire up this bad girl to demonstrate dry hulling. And dry hulling starts with a big diesel, in this case 6-cylinder. He told me it was a Fuso Japanese motor. Just incredible amount of power. These belts here. I won't be standing here when they start this up. And then the requires a lot of friction there. So really the thing is the length of this from side to side is quite long, because the coffee travels that length. And yeah. And the handle there's actually a clutch, yeah. Yeah. So this is the rage for coffee being sold to like fancy stores in Jakarta. That is coffee cherry. Ugh. So this is called winey coffee, and it's cherry that's been put in sealed bags for what some call carbonic maceration. The outgassing and everything from the cherries sort of stewing and rotting, so to some degree. Initially, you still see unripe green coffee there, and then you could, after drying the cherry, you can produce this any number of ways, or you can dry it and you can pulp it and make wet hulls. You could even make dry hulls, like washed style coffee. That's Aulia. We buy some coffee from here, but not this coffee. And it's basically, when I've tasted it, it's pure fermented coffee. Fermented defect coffee to our, tastes and preference and what training. But that's, you can throw all that out the window if this is what you like. But it's highly sort of vinegar type fruit flavor. But they pay really well for it. And so it's what producers are into. Loving this though. Coffee, fashion. Coffee, fashion. So the really cool thing that's happening in Indonesia is this sort of, not just winey coffee, but just this thing where producers and people processing coffee and farmers are hooked up with local roasters in Jakarta mainly, and Bandung. A lot of it is in Java, but here in Takengon there's just coffee shops and coffee roasters everywhere, and it's really quite a revolution. And what they're doing is making custom batches. Literally the front of this shop, there's the roaster. They're roasting coffee, we're doing a little cupping, and here in the back they're processing cherry, they're drying coffee right in the middle of Takengon town, their backyard. Over here they've got a parchment huller, they have a pulper over here, they've mounted on wheels. They've got some coffee in here, sort of initial shade drying. So I find this really exciting. No matter if some of the coffees they do isn't to my taste, some of the coffees they do are definitely, and we've gotten some really cool lots here. And the neatest thing for me is like that a lot of the things that we talk about in coffee in the United States for this global product and connecting with farmers and not really knowing if farmers are being paid fairly their percentage of what the final retail price is, and everything to the sort of exoticism of coffee, of of tasting coffees from far away, and what our romance is about the labor and the conditions of that, and the coffee estate, and different sort of issues of fairness in the economy, issues about class, issues about consumption in the global north, consuming raw products from the global south. All this, what we're seeing right here, subverts all of that, in that it just is like a farmer's market product. This is like going to the farmer's market in, Marin, somewhere, Berkeley, and buying the tomatoes that somebody who drove in from town produced. So, and this is direct trade. It makes all the thing that we say, we farm gate, direct trade, this is what we do, makes it look like bullshit, basically, because you have this huge advantage. It doesn't have to be shipped, it doesn't have to go to an exporter, nobody speculates on it, there's no interaction with a global coffee exchange or the base price of the New York Sea. This is just, this is a whole different thing, whole different product in a way. So I find it really exciting, local consumption to me, and the community of people around it. It's truly a community. Last night they were roasting samples here, and Daniel came roasting, and they had everybody came. They're not competitors. They're you know, first it started with like a couple people here, and then more came, and then you had 15 people here, and they're making coffee and drinking and roasting samples and saying, let's try this, let's try that. So this is the front of their shop here. You know, they retail the coffee right out the front, get the full value. This was this cool little sample roaster. It's made in Indonesia. They make their own roasters, have their little packaging equipment here. Roasting coffee. He's got his little daughter there hanging out in the front of the shop. And you know, if you care about coffee and the issues about it, this is like the most exciting thing that I've seen. It gives me a lot of energy just being around it and seeing it.